That was fun. It had a celebratory tone, and the topic, the journey from I to we, it fits in perfectly, so you'll see as the talk goes how it does. First of all, I want to say, sorry, I'm going to cry.
Because it's making a big noise every time.
Oh, it's my daughter's birthday. And I dedicate this talk to her. This is a personal look at a journey. As I was preparing this talk, I was led to go back and examine my journey with I to we, and I found so much more. Society is showing big signs that this journey is already happening on a large scale, despite all the bad news and media drama that keeps us separated. Today, I offer several readings, quotes, that illustrate the impulse of spirit is nudging us forward to be communal. And there are thousands of examples of people and artists and groups recognizing the power of living and working together. Maybe it is a sign that we are ready to relinquish our individualized, separated selves and embrace the grace, peace, power, and beauty of our collectiveness. Sometimes we may wonder whether our world will ever change, but let's remember that all the answers to our woes already exist in the mind of God. We just need to stay open, keep a vigilant eye on the kind of world we want to evolve into, and look at what we need to release. So I asked myself, what have I done to contribute? Did I add to or distract from this evolutionary impulse? Have I contributed to the I or to the we consciousness? Well, I'll show you what I had done. Back in 1998, and during my Science of Mind practitioner class, I recently came across a poem that I had done for one of the classes. I'll just give you an example of where I was at. I am so full of power. From the one God, one source, each expression, all of my life is spirit, whole, complete, and connected. I am by nature a projection of God. I have free choice. I go on to say, I am one with God's abundance, and all bounty is available to me, and so on and so forth. I think it just really shows how involved I was in my stuff. How many of you remember going through the self-healing phase? Many of us are still healing. It is necessary and normal, especially if you come out of a dysfunctional family and have tons of healing work to do. It is a beautiful process. It is lifelong, and it's probably the number one reason for not being able to actualize the we consciousness. Or in my case, I'm realizing that I have been acting out from the trauma which isolated me for many years because of the patterns of survival. Our first experience with collective is our parents, of course, then our larger family unit. Distrust will enter if threats to our safety and peace of mind occur. We will naturally develop ways to exclude that risk from getting to us. But it could also turn into unconscious behaviors as we try to control it in our future lives. As elders, we don't want anything to upset the whole protective structure we spent a lifetime building. Imagine a large group of people, called a tribe or a society or even a culture, trying to maintain an environment of protective separation. To keep these unconscious risks and threats at bay, imagine the systems that were built to control our space. For what? For peace? There will never be peace if some parts of the whole are excluded, ostracized, separated, or even killed. Many of us grew up with this kind of societal structure. When I look at this now, I feel scared. To think that this idea has been the basis of how the world has been colonized, traumatized, corrupted, and left destitute. The separation of the person up here and the types of life on the bottom is one of great misunderstanding, isolation, and ignorance. Remember the story of the person stranded on the roof with the floodwaters rising? A boat came by and a helicopter came by, but the person said, "No, no, thank you, I'm waiting for God to save me." Well, we all know that God sent the boat and God sent the helicopter and other rescue efforts. We as a humanity are on the roof of despair, waiting for a similar rescue. To the credit of nature, old wisdom, and now science, we see that God has sent and is sending us all these beings of nature, the animals to honor, the plants to eat and enjoy, the bacteria that assist our bodies in assimilation and protection, and a vast array of guidance to live healthfully and to thrive as a species in the web of life. We are not meant to be dominant. We do have the powers of choice with these huge brains of ours, but we won't be able to use them fully until we recognize that our full potential is wedded into the entire web of life. The organization, governments, economies, religious institutions, they all use this system. It's called the linear system. The antidote, or the next phase of our evolution, is the circular economy, which is getting lots of airtime lately. It is based on the ideas of infinite creative flow and interconnection, and all answers and solutions exist in this mind of God. I came across a new author that I'd never heard of before, Eduardo Gagliano. He is a journalist out of Uruguay and considered a literary giant in Latin America. He says, "I don't believe in charity. I believe in solidarity. Charity is vertical. It's humiliating. It goes from the top to the bottom. Solidarity is horizontal, but I'm going to say it's circular, or maybe even spherical, the three-dimensional form. And we should throw in time, the time dimension. And if we really want to get freaky, string theory suggests that there are 10 dimensions. So not only is life connected with love, trust, and respect, nature and science are proving how deep and diverse the reach of our interconnection is. The mind of God, which is everything seen and unseen. Now, this little graphic shows the web of connection of all these aspects of life and nature and biology. But it does not show how it is done. Research of the cellular, bacterial, mycelial, molecular, the energy levels proves that we are part of a fluid, shifting, transmuting reciprocal system. Things that can heal other things are already here. We just have to discover the connection. Here in the mind of God, this is one where mind answers all questions. It is infinite and continually expresses itself, has always expressed itself, and will continue to express itself in ways that we as humans may not be aware of right now, but soon. So how do we heal this separation, this lack of connection, this hierarchical limiting consciousness? Well, I'd like to refer to Ernest Holmes. He has a quote here, but I'm going to tweak it in a minute. Here's the original quote. When you have a good bank account, you certainly are not going to act impoverished. Of course not. Your attitude will indicate that you are financially successful, for you have identified yourself with prosperity. Anyone who sees you will immediately get this impression. Surely then you can begin acting that way now as you realize that you have access to the universal storehouse, which is limitless. I've changed the words and the context a little bit, and this model can be used for any limiting condition that you might be experiencing. When you have a belief that the world is here for you, then you are not going to act with separation. Of course not. Your attitude will indicate that you are connected to something greater. Anyone who sees you will immediately get this impression. Surely you can begin acting that way now as you realize that you have access to the universal storehouse of love, health, trust, and support, which is limitless. Here is another example of how to heal. This is a writing by the Hopi elders. It's the Hopi elders' prophecy, and it was in Alice Walker's book of Meditations. We are the ones we have been waiting for. Not I, we. We have been telling the people this is the 11th hour. Now we must go back and tell the people this is the hour. And there are things to be considered. Where are you living? What are you doing? Are you in right relation? Where is your water? Know your garden. It is time to speak your truth. Create your community. Be good to each other. And do not look outside yourself for the leader. This could be a good time. There is a river flowing now very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel they are being torn apart and will suffer greatly. No, the river has its destination. The elders say, we must let go of the shore and push off into the river. Keep our eyes open and our head above the water. See who is in there and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment that we do, our spiritual growth and journey comes to a halt. The time of the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and your vocabulary. All that you do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. We are the ones we have been waiting for. Hopi elders. Moves me to tears. So after reading this prophecy and realizing that answers are already in existence, I wanted to find some evidence of these answers, and I found it in Forbes magazine called Economists Are Redefining Everything. And it focused on 5 economists from around the world. They were all women. I'm only going to talk about 2 of them. Kate Raworth In order to get away from the obsession with growth, she has come up with donut economics. The concept of GDP, which is gross domestic product, which was created in the 1930s with its limited scope, ignores the value of unpaid labor like housework and parenting and makes no distinction between revenues made from war or water. The old GDP model has kept us financially, politically, socially addicted to growth and is no longer applicable to our current economy, which is 10 times larger and very different from the 30s. She says we must move away from the linear, upward-moving line of progress ingrained in us all to a regenerative and distributive model designed to engage everyone, shaped like a donut or a pie. Then there was Carlota Perez. She doesn't want to stop or slow growth. She wants to dematerialize it. Green won't cut it by spreading fear. Her push is towards a redefinition of the good life and the need for smart green growth to be fueled by a desire of new, attractive, aspirational lifestyles. Lives built on a circular economy that multiplies services and intangibles, which offers limitless growth and less harm to the environment. Think more services and less things. Active and creative work. Focus on health and care. A preference for customization over conformity. And her list goes on. The triangle is about the paradigm of the strongest and fittest surviving. The circle is the paradigm that the community survives with its cooperation and diversity. Another tool that I'd like to talk about in this journey of change, or from I to we, is observation with intention, or intentional observation. And I came across another wonderful resource, Robert Lanza. He's an American leader in medicine and science. He was on the Times 100 most influential people in 2004, I believe it was, and he was in the top 4 for stem cell research. And his article, what caught my eye, is how we collectively determine reality and the structure of space-time itself. It is very heady. I didn't want to attempt to try to explain it, but I will read the review. The paper shows that networks of observers define the structure of physical reality, space-time itself. In particular, it reveals that the exasperating incompatibility between Einstein's general relativity and quantum mechanics vanishes if one takes the properties of observers, us, into account. The presence of observers drastically changes the behavior of observable quantities themselves, not only at microscopic scales, but also at very large spatio-temporal scales. Observers determine the value of both gravitational constant and effective cosmological constant. Phew! I think you get the point, right? I actually employed this method probably 20-some years ago. I'll give you a brief snippet of what happened. So my daughter was in a dance team. So she was about 10 years old, and they were going to enter a competition. They had a beautiful choreography, and there was about 15 of them. And prior to the competition, I wanted to try this. I asked the director, and sure enough, she said, yes, go ahead. I brought all the dancers into the studio and had them lay on the floor, close their eyes. We actually were going to go into a meditation. And I played the song for the dance, and I instructed them to visualize the dance as if they were observers watching themselves on stage. I didn't know that I was actually doing this, but they rocked the competition. That performance was so beautiful. They were so tight. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I like to think that it was a whole nother dimension of how they saw themselves. And I would like to try something like that now. So let's go into a little meditation. Let's escape out of our linear, egoic, space-time constraints, and let's acknowledge our powers of visualization to see a new world that works for everyone. Feel free to close your eyes and invite a picture of a community, a family, a tribe, the whole planet if you wish, or just one other person. And let's take that picture under our wing of consciousness. I started this talk with I conclude it with we, using that poem from 1998, which I have changed the pronouns on. We are so full of power. From the one God, one source, each expression, all of our lives are spirit, whole, complete, and connected, and we are safe. We are by nature a projection of God. We have free choice to give or take, to sing or cry, to love or hate. We are never punished for our choices, but we do have to lie in our own bed. So we choose joy and generosity, and we sleep contentedly. We are one with God's abundance. All bounty is available to us as long as we claim it, conceive it, think it, and act it. There is no lack, just finite thinking. So we choose infinity. We are immortal, never-ending awareness. God forever lives. We forever live, never lost nor diminished. Therefore, the work may take a while, and we choose patience. We are the embodiment of Christ. We awaken to higher levels of this cosmic ideal. We hold dear these attributes, teach them to our children, hold ourselves accountable to them, set our standards by them, and we are guided. We are love. We get high and get low. We scream, laugh, and hope. We see sometimes. We are blind sometimes. But we are always one together. And we are at peace. Last page. Where's my last page? There it is. So maybe it's time for us to re-examine our old ways of being in the world, release the patterns that no longer serve the greater consciousness. I do not know what is the rest of my journey from I to we, but I do know that the answer is already in the mind of God. All of our answers are available and waiting to be expressed. Keep asking the questions. Namaste.